Have you ever wondered what a company is really worth? I mean, beyond the spreadsheets and the balance sheets. Today, we're diving into a quiet revolution that's totally changing how we measure value. A shift from what we can easily count to what actually counts.
So let's just start with one single, kind of staggering number: 90%. That's right. As of 2020, a full 90% of the S&P 500's market value was tied up in things you can't touch. We're talking brand reputation, intellectual property, customer data, all the stuff that traditional accounting just barely registers.
And right there, that creates a massive problem. You see, if 90% of what makes a company valuable is basically invisible on its financial statements, it means investors, and really all of us, are flying with a huge blind spot. We're missing massive risks, and just as importantly, we're missing world-changing opportunities.
What's really wild is just how fast this all happened. I mean, think about it. Back in 1975, value was physical. You could literally kick it. 83% of a company's worth was in its factories, its machines, its inventory. Flash forward to today, and that is completely flipped on its head. The real story of a company's value just isn't being told by those tangible assets anymore.
But here's the thing. This isn't actually the first time we've had to invent new ways to see what's really going on inside a company. History shows us that whenever a crisis hits, our response is always to demand more transparency. We end up creating new tools to make the invisible visible.
Take the 1929 stock market crash. That wasn't just a market failure, it was a transparency failure. It directly led to the creation of the SEC, which forced companies to open up their books in a standard way for everyone to see. Then, decades later, the anti-apartheid movement proved that social issues weren't just some fuzzy moral thing, they had real financial teeth.
And Professor Steinberg just nails the crucial point here. Reporting isn't passive. When you make a company measure and disclose something, whether it's their financials or their impact on society, it fundamentally changes how they behave.
So, as investors started asking for this new non-financial info, a whole bunch of well-meaning groups jumped in to create standards. The problem? Well, everybody had a slightly different take on how to do it, and what started as a good idea got really complicated really fast.
This basically led to two competing ideas. On one side, you had standards like the GRI. Their whole focus was on a company's impact on the world, its effect on the environment, on people, on the economy. You can kind of think of it as an inside-out view.
Then, on the other side, you had groups like SASB. They flipped it completely. They focused on how sustainability issues, like climate change or labor practices, could create financial risks and opportunities for the company. This was the outside-in view, aimed right at investors.
Then, you had the specialists jump in. CDP, for example, was laser-focused on one critical thing: collecting hard data on greenhouse gas emissions and environmental risks.
At the same time, the TCFD created a framework specifically to help companies report on the financial risks from climate change, tying it directly to the bottom line. See, all of these were good ideas on their own, but they were creating different pieces for totally different puzzles.
With all these different acronyms and frameworks floating around, you ended up with this: alphabet soup. It was a mess. It was absolutely impossible for an investor to compare Company A to Company B in a meaningful way. Instead of clarity, the market just got more noise.
So clearly something had to change. Just like the world eventually did with financial accounting, we needed a single global language for sustainability. A way to finally consolidate all this chaos into one source of truth that everyone, everywhere, could actually understand.
And that is where the ISSB comes in. Formed in 2021 by the very same foundation that oversees global accounting standards, so you know they're serious. Their mission is to bring order to the chaos, and they're not starting from scratch. They're building on all the best work from those pioneers to create one unified baseline.
And their mission is actually beautifully simple. Step 1, take that alphabet soup and consolidate it into one cohesive standard. Step 2, use that to build a global baseline that works for everybody. And step 3, partner up with regulators around the world to get it adopted, so we're all finally speaking the same language.
So, what does this new language actually let us see? I like to think about it this way. If traditional financial accounting is like a black and white X-ray that just shows you the bones of a company,
Then sustainability reporting is the full-color MRI. It shows you the whole picture, the nerves, the tissue, the blood flow, the complete picture of a company's health.
Now, the guiding light for all of this is a concept called financial materiality. It sounds technical, but it's a really simple, powerful idea. It doesn't mean a company has to report every single thing it does. No way. It means they have to report the things that could actually influence an investor's decision. It's all about filtering out the noise to find what truly matters to a company's long-term survival.
And what's really crucial here is that materiality is not one size fits all. It is totally industry specific. Okay, let's take climate change. It's a huge issue, right? But it creates very different material risks for different companies. For a car company, the big risk is people shifting to EVs. But for an insurance company, it's the rising cost of paying out claims from more frequent storms and floods. Same topic, totally different financial impact.
So why should you care about any of this? Because this new level of clarity, it's not just for Wall Street analysts. It fundamentally changes the game for investors, for employees, for customers, really for anyone who wants to hold companies accountable for their actions.
You know, it all comes back to this. By finally shining a bright light on that invisible 90%, we can move beyond just looking at short-term profits. We can start to understand a company's true resilience and finally see which companies are actually built to last in our rapidly changing world.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful question. For decades, we've only had a fraction of the picture. Now, we're about to see it all. So with this new power of sight, what will we, as investors, as consumers, as citizens, what will we start demanding from the companies that shape our world?